Welcome to ChiroSphere, where we talk about all things chiropractic and some things, well, not so chiropractic. I'm Dr. Ray Foxworth, your host for ChiroSphere and CEO of ChiroHealth USA, the network that works for chiropractic. Today, we get to spend some time with Jamie Greenawalt, president of Foot Levelers and a proud third-generation leader in her family business. Founded over 70 years ago by her grandfather, Dr. Monty Greenawalt, I had the opportunity to work with Dr. Greenawalt on a project in the late 80s, believe it or not, focused on chiropractic networks and their role in managed care. He actually flew us out to his home and met with him there. It was just really enjoyed that time with him. You know, I don't know of any one family that has had more of a positive impact on chiropractic than the Greenawalts, and they continue to in that tradition today. Jamie's passion for healthcare and female empowerment shines through her impressive career. She holds an MBA and an undergraduate degree in global studies and environmental science. She has worked with the World Bank in Washington, D.C., and the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization in Rome, focusing on healthcare access, sustainable nutrition, and empowering female business owners. With a steadfast commitment to her health, Jamie's received biweekly chiropractic care for 40 years. I don't know many chiropractors that do that, Jamie. She's deeply passionate about giving back to the community, serving on numerous local and international boards dedicated to health, education, and empowerment. Today, she's going to share her perspective on the intersection of healthcare, business, and female empowerment. So welcome, Jamie. Thanks for spending
Well,
time
thank you
with us.
so much.
Absolutely.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. So, as a third generation leader of Foot Levelers, can you share how your grandfather's vision and values have really influenced the company and direction over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as third generation, I'm so proud to be able to continue to do that. I feel like it's such a privilege, and one that I take very seriously. But one of the things that I learned early on from my grandfather is, he was very influential in my life and always talked about servant leadership. And that's part of the ethos, I think, of this profession and the people who serve their patients. For the greater good of allowing our bodies to be able to perform better and more optimally. So, I think this has been sustained a lot through the last 40 years that my father Kent has run the company. And as I have taken on a more active role in the last 5 years, working side by side with him, knowing how I was raised and kind of the value system that I grew up in and don't take for granted at all, but am very aware of, has been really, in my formative years was really powerful. And I think now more than ever are things that I'm grateful to have as muscle memory in the way that I approach work and being able to support, our customers in the profession.
Yeah. Well, as the saying goes, the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree, does it?
I think so. I think so most of the time. Yeah.
So, when did you realize that your grandfather was such a force of nature rather than just grandfather?
This is such a great question. And I actually have two very specific memories of being with him when I was really young. One was when I was about 7 years old. And I don't know if this was normal or not, but I used to go visit him once a summer. And I live in Virginia and he lived in Las Vegas. And so I would fly by myself with the flight escort in the, late 80s, early 90s to visit him for a week or two. And when I would go out there, we would go on these walks through the casinos, and he would make me look at people's feet and make me look at how they walked. And so from an early age, he would explain to me why it was important. He would look at someone and say, that person probably has some hip pain. And sometimes he'd go up to the person and say, and he was very charming and charismatic, and he would say, excuse me, I have a question for you. Do you by any chance have any right hip pain? And the person would look at him, and he was very, charismatic person. And so he would have them laughing by the end of the conversation. But I don't think there was a time that he was ever wrong about that. And so just by looking at the body and understanding the kinetic chains from an early age, I knew that there was a connection between the feet and the spine and posture and feeling good, But the other thing that he would do that was really unique and now I know, and I'm even more grateful for, was the power of positive thinking. And he would always say to me, Jamie, you can achieve if you believe. And I think that's so important. And there's lots of variations of that I think we all subscribe to in our lives right now. But that's, to know it and to believe it are two slightly different things. But to know it and really understand that it's almost a higher truth
Hmm.
in how we can approach life and problem solving and really that ultimate belief in ourselves and that greater good that we're working towards has been really powerful. And I've learned different iterations of that over my life. And I think that's really ultimately the thing that I think about when I think about him, is his attitude.
That's a wonderful thing to pass down to your children and grandchildren, and to continue that tradition. I often tell people that I was blessed to have parents that never told me that there was something that I couldn't do. And so that positivity seems to, I think, permeate chiropractic in a lot of ways, because,
Yes.
we've kind of been the underdogs for the longest time. But I think a lot of the reason that the profession has advanced the way it has is that we have belief in it, and
Absolutely.
belief in ourselves. We can be a bit contrarian, but we've backed it up. I remember Jim Parker saying years ago, "It succeeds because it's right." And I
Yes.
think that's kind of consistent in that line of thought. So your father and my friend that I have the pleasure of serving on the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress board, executive board, has certainly been a visionary in his own right. What is it, do you think, that has driven your family to give back so much to this profession? Like I said earlier, there's not many that have set the bar like you guys have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, it is really an honor to be a part of the profession. I always have to give the gratitude for that, because it's such a special community. And we're working actively, all of us, to make that bigger, and we're being heard more than we ever have been before. And I think the positive, results and the correlations between, the patients and this and the care that they're getting, and the pain that's being managed more effectively, and the healthcare costs that are being lowered through this wonderful evolution of these care cycles that the profession can provide is so encouraging. And with what my company, with what Foot Levelers does to be able to provide our products, our custom orthotics to doctors and their patients, we're able to really focus on serving the patient. And that reinforces our ability to be able to then give back to the profession financially, monetarily, and then of course in kind with time and service on boards and things like that. So our drive to continue to do this is the fact that we believe in it. We talked earlier about, if you really believe in something, there's passion behind it, and there'll probably be some success there. And there's momentum. And when there's momentum, you don't want to let your foot off the pedal. So I feel like we're just getting started. Kent often says that in some of the conversations. I'm sure you've been in conversations with him, and we're just getting started. And we still have a lot to do. So that in and of itself, to share the great news of what this profession can do for people is a huge motivator and driver for us.
And I personally appreciate all that your family has done over the years, and I wish more vendors, businesses in the chiropractic profession would give back like you guys have. And our company does our best to give back as well. And as I've told people often, I don't look at it as an option. I look at it as an obligation.
Yes.
Everything that I've had good in life has been a result of chiropractic. And I think a lot of other companies that are out there also benefit from being affiliated or working with this profession. And like I said, you guys have set the bar high. It's appreciated. And I would encourage other companies and vendors to give back as well. Rising tide raises all boats, as they say.
Absolutely.
So you've had a pretty diverse career working with organizations like I mentioned, the World Bank and United Nations. How's that really affected your way of leading things now at Foot Levelers? Any correlation?
Yeah, definitely. There are, I had great experiences working with people of all different walks of life. I mean, very rural communities, indigenous communities, impoverished all the way up to very privileged. And the similarities that I think are relevant that I have taken from those earlier experiences in my professional career, and I can apply them to foot levelers, is that people have some really basic needs. And that is they want to be respected and communicated with, and, you know, they want to be listened to. And I think developing great communication skills and really knowing when to listen versus when to speak is really an art, and something I work on all the time personally. I don't know that I'll ever have mastered that, but some of those basic things I think can really allow you to create an environment for success if you're just open to them. And so those connections with people in my work environments, I think, are what I would attribute to some of the things that have allowed me to step into my leadership role a little bit more efficiently in the last couple of years.
I think that listening part is critical. What's the saying? There's a reason we have two ears and one mouth.
That's right. That's
Uh,
right.
Yeah, just kind of as a sidebar, I just happened to see this. I follow a lot of different professions, like the
Mhm.
AMA journal. I get a lot of different journals, and it was really interesting about the importance of listening and active listening, but it also spoke to positioning your body. And what they found, the researchers found, is that patients felt like their doctors were listening more to them and more engaged with them if they sat rather than standing. So these were in hospital settings.
Mhm.
The doctors that would go in and stand beside the bed
Mhm.
really didn't make the same connection with people as those that went in and pulled up a chair and sat by the bed. And so,
Yes.
there's a little tidbit for the chiropractors out there. If you're walking into the room with the patient, sit down, meet them knee to knee and eye to eye, because it does have that subconscious impact that you are more connected with them rather than standing over them. I just thought that was a really
Absolutely. I think
take.
there's a positional power dynamic too of standing versus sitting, especially if you're the one standing, they're already sitting, right? You kind of level the playing field a little bit by being, on the same level.
Yeah, no doubt. So empowering women in business is a significant part of your work. Can you share some of the insights or stories about maybe some of the challenge you experienced in some of those organizations and how you handled it and how you might suggest others handle that?
Sure. Most of my work directly working with women was when I was doing development work and doing a lot of work in communities, specifically with subsistence farmers. I've always been really passionate about healthy eating and food and nutrition. So when I worked in agriculture and food and nutrition security, talking about and advocating for these communities to be able to provide nutritious meals for children to prevent stunting and wasting and some of those very basic health issues. I was really focused on working with women who were the providers of care for basically the entire communities, because they were the farmers, they were the ones who prepared the meals, and it was really trying to understand how to work with the communities, listening, active listening, communicating, proactively about needs, and really trying to understand how efficiencies could be brought to remove barriers for them being able to purchase things like food or even grow their own food. And so, from a standpoint of empowerment of women, what I learned in that situation was, again, listening is important, and also being able to communicate to other members of communities who might not completely understand the why. I think one of the things as part of active listening and communicating is, and this is something that my grandfather always also used to say, is if they know why, they comply. So he would always use the example of, if I can tell a patient why they need to do something, then they're much more likely to do it because they understand the consequences, right? That's why prescription bottles say do not ingest X number of tablets of this medication, because if you do, you're going to die. Like, there's a consequence, right? So if you can explain the why, even in the simplest example of an agriculture, example of, if you do not feed your children this orange flesh sweet potato, they might have a vitamin A deficiency and lose their eyesight. So they might be more inclined to incorporate better nutrition into what they prepare on a daily meal. So by bringing the why into the conversation, it became much more impactful. And then you can roll that up not only just to the example of women, but just, again, how do we communicate with our patients simply so that they understand? How can we get better patient outcomes by, involving them in the process and making them feel empowered, that they're saying yes to something that they already believe in before they leave your office.
Yeah, I'm gonna steal that phrase. I really, really like that.
Yeah. If they know why they comply, it's so simple and you understand it immediately.
Yeah, no doubt. Like,
Yeah.
son, if you don't get off of that, I'm gonna spank your butt. There's your why.
Yeah, that's right. There's a consequence.
Yeah.
And it could be a good or a bad consequence, but to understand what's at the end of that path, I think is also part of that like really effective communication piece. That's obviously so important for our profession with doctors and their patients.
So, since you've become president of Foot Levelers, have you taken any steps to empower the women that are there? You guys have an amazing team, and have always stood out, I think, among other companies and in embracing women. How is Foot Levelers currently empowering women in the workforce? Have there been any initiatives that you've put in place since you've taken over as president?
Great question. We have added to our senior leadership team with a couple of females, very strong leaders, and that's been wonderful. We've got a really diverse leadership team. But aside from that, the way that I look at our ability to empower women is not limited to the walls of Foot Levelers and just our company. We have really been very thoughtful and intentional about how we have developed specific products to meet the unique needs of women. And I can speak to two very, very briefly. One is our new Fifth Avenue, our newer redesigned Fifth Avenue product, which is a very thin orthotic that can fit inside a high heel up to 3 inches, which is wonderful because, just because we have great taste in shoes doesn't mean that our feet have to hurt. So being able to expand that line to be able to serve more women and to allow them to make better choices for their posture health has been great. And then in my second pregnancy with my daughter, we came up with a Mother Nurture line, which is the first ever, to my knowledge, pregnancy orthotic line that's for second and third trimester as well as with a postpartum orthotic. So these are strictly, custom products that are by prescription that allow and accommodate for the various stages in pregnancy, obviously with weight gain and hormone changes. And they have been really, really popular and an incredible resource for women who, when you're pregnant, you're not really able to take, pain medication or things that you might otherwise take because it's not recommended. So being able to put something that is very low risk and conservative in your shoe as a way to manage pain, especially back pain, sciatica, things like that, has been really, really wonderfully received.
Clearly, your dad listens to people. I know that Christy, who works for me, has been asking your dad to make orthotics for heels for years. So it sounds like you guys have delivered on that. So hang tight while we take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. Welcome back to our podcast with Jamie Greenawalt. So, as I mentioned earlier, you've been receiving biweekly care for over 40 years. And as I said, I don't know many chiropractors that actually do that. How has that affected and influenced your personal and professional life? And what advice would you give others in considering chiropractic treatment?
Sure. I would say most of the time that is true. I travel a lot, so sometimes I come not exactly on a schedule, but I really try and make a conscious effort, not only for me, but for my family. We have full family appointments with my kids and my husband to go in, because I think when you commit to something and you schedule it and then it really becomes a part of your life. And so much of what I do every day is talking about chiropractic and the benefits of chiropractic and how chiropractic should be more aggressively consumed by the masses. And so as a consumer of chiropractic myself and beneficiary of chiropractic, I feel lucky that I have made the time to do that. And so I also think it keeps me honest. So much of what I do in my work reflects on, the engagement with our doctors and being able to go into clinics and really talk to other patients who are there and hear their experiences. I've been in, my doctor's office many times where there's somebody up on our kiosk. And they'll ask a question to the CA and I'll be able to say, hey, do you want me to answer that for you? And so it keeps me, like I said, it keeps me honest and relevant and a part of the life cycle of what our profession might need and want and what options there could be to give to doctors who could optimize and innovate.
I have found just in my experience with other doctors, and my mom and dad are both chiropractors, so I've been around it all of my life. And sometimes I think it's unfortunate that we as chiropractors, and myself included at times, you know, we get adjusted on the bed or on the footstool
Right.
or on the ottoman. When we go see other chiropractors, we don't always pay for that service. It's kind of a thing we do for each other.
Of course.
And I think in some ways, certainly as a child, you kind of take that for granted. And for practitioners, if you're not going to see another chiropractor and willing to pay them for their service, I just think that would be perhaps a good thing for us to do, where we actually show and appreciate the value of it.
Yes.
Anyway, it's just an interesting dynamic.
I think that's such a good point. And to be able to give and share is great, but also to be able to receive, right? I mean, we talk a lot about giving of ourselves and to others when we, and I say we, I can't say that, I'm not a DC. But when doctors, lay their hands and give an adjustment to a patient, they are giving of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it is a service that they get, that they are paid for, but it's so much more than that to the people that really understand what that means. And that's really powerful. And so to be able to be on the receiving end of that and understand, how powerful that is, and to be able to then in turn reflect that back in all the other good things you do that may have nothing to do with the adjustment, but the adjustment propels you with the energy and the neurological response that will then take you through your day at that higher frequency, at that higher level. And so if we could all remember that we deserve that, we're deserving of that. I think there's that contributes to that powerful momentum that we're building as a profession.
Yeah, and from the doctor's side, if you're having conversations with patients about the importance of wellness and maintenance care, and you're not doing it yourself, there's a bit of incongruency there. And
Yep.
I think if we were doing that routinely, we would come across a lot more powerfully to our patients, because we're not
Sure.
just telling, it's that old thing, don't do what I do what I say do.
Right.
And it's kind of hard to sell it if you don't own it yourself,
That's right.
Yeah. So
and everybody deserves it. We deserve that good care.
Yeah, I agree. So you're passionate about giving back to the community. Can you discuss some of the initiatives or boards you've been involved with and how they align with your personal mission?
Sure. I have been involved with volunteer working boards much of my adult life. More so before I had kids. I think at one point I was on 3 boards at once. And that ranged from, urban youth support to, at one point I worked in Nepal for quite a number of years. And so I was on a board there that helped women learn different things who had migrated from rural areas into the capital, into Kathmandu, alone without their parents. So they came from environments where they were the only literate person in their family. They had taught themselves to read, or they had gone through primary school, and they were in a bigger city seeking further education. They were living on their own. They needed to know how to ride a motorbike. They needed to know how to apply to live in an apartment by themselves. They needed to understand how to get a driver's license. They needed self-defense. And these are all in situations in countries where they're not developed as much as we are in the US. And there's a lot of opportunity for supporting these types of women, or these groups of women in ways that we might take for granted because we might have a parent who would show us how to do that. So there were wonderful stories of graduates where these women had gone through this course. It's called Women Lead, and they had become high-level government officials, lawyers, doctors, because they got the basic skills to be able to give them a leg up into the next phase of their professional and educational life. So that was really gratifying. And now I'm on a board of the Carillion Medical Center here in Roanoke, which is a large community hospital system. So I'm usually aligned with kind of where my focus is professionally. And then of course I've been a long time member of the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress, and I'm also on the membership committee with Christy.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
know, I think what you said is really, really important. There's a difference in giving a hand out and a hand up. And, being involved in something like that where people, it literally changes the trajectory of their life
that's
versus,
right.
unfortunately, sometimes handouts keep them exactly where they are. That doesn't mean
Right.
you don't help financially, but truly empowering people with the skills, I think ultimately is what, like I said, helps change the trajectory of their life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So your third generation taking over foot levelers. Any changes that we'll see coming from foot levelers with you at the helm?
I think that you can expect a lot more of the continuation of bringing innovation and technology and optimization to not only what we provide in terms of our products, but the technology that we bring. We want to continue to support the profession the way that we always have. I have no intention of changing that at all in any way. In fact, I'd really like to be able to continue to do more. We're looking at ways to be able to do that every day. But really ultimately my goal is to continue to provide the best custom orthotic in the world, so that we can contribute to great patient outcomes, satisfaction. And, a lot of the time we hear from our doctors that our products are great referral sources for them, in addition to the chiropractic care that they receive. So we're really happy with those results and want to just do more to amplify those.
Recently, I had the opportunity to be at your headquarters, and y'all had remodeled. And Jamie,
Yes,
I have to tell you, walking through the halls and seeing all of the sketches and the patents that your grandfather applied for and received was absolutely mind blowing. We think of foot levelers as, just the orthotics, but he was really forward thinking and it's got to be wonderful to walk through those halls and see the history and know that came from granddaddy. I mean, that's just,
absolutely. It's a lot of pride
yeah,
that I have when I look at those drawings. And we worked with a really great firm. I love our renovation as well. Our team members love it. It's really become, we tried to make our break room really large, and it's like, centrally focused like a kitchen would be, right? The center of the home is usually in the kitchen for most families. So we've got this great space, and it's nice because we've got things on the wall or there are quotes from both Dr. Monty and Kent. You mentioned the patent drawings and the things that are there that are, reflective of kind of our beginnings.
yeah.
And fun fact, Kent actually has more patents than Monty did.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And but if I could just speak to one of the other things that you mentioned earlier, your original question was kind of like what is in the future for foot levelers. Um, One thing that I'm really proud of when we talk about our beginnings is that we've been the first to do a lot of things. We created the first casting kit ever. We had the original patent on the box that you step in to take the original
I
mold of a
used to
weight
have
bearing
those at
foot.
my office.
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, across all professions, we had that. And then we had the first cervical pillow in the 60s because my grandfather got into a car accident and he wanted to make sure that he had the option for flexion and extension as he was going through his healing process.
Mm.
And then we had the first digital scanner in the late 90s and early 2000s. And now, actually, earlier this month, we just launched our very first ever digital neck and foot posture scanning system.
Hmm.
So we're really excited about that. And, again, bringing, as I mentioned a couple times during our time together here, bringing innovation to the profession in terms of really great assessment tools that allow you to determine, what your patient would benefit from in terms of orthotic or pillow support is really important to us. So we've put a lot of money and time and dedication to really trying to optimize that, and I'm so excited for people to see what we've done in that area.
That's awesome. So I have some just for fun questions.
Oh, good.
Who's your hero and why?
Oh, that's a great question. um I think my hero is my dad. And I really pause for a minute before I answer that because it might be something that would be expected, but um I'm constantly blown away by the things that he's done and the smart thinking that he has, used over the years to really be the visionary that he is, to bring things to life. There's one thing to be an idea person, but it's an entirely different thing to be able to execute and make something really important, happen and come to life. And he's done this in many different areas in business and, for the profession. And I think, for the purposes of this, this platform, I think that is 100% the truth. He is a remarkable person in many ways, and he inspires me every day.
Yeah, he does a lot of people, without a doubt. And our company, we run on a system called the EOS, with Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Of course.
If you're with that, and it talks about the visionary. And I have this running joke with my team. I'm the visionary for Chiro Health USA. The problem with the visionary is we can't tell the difference between a vision and an hallucination. And you got to have yourself, you got to surround yourself with the right team to have those ideas kind of come to fruition. And certainly the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress, I know, was met with a lot of resistance when he first came up with that concept some 20 plus years ago. But my gosh, what an impact that the foundation has on the profession. I mean, and hearing your dad share his, kind of his why, was being a child and hearing his father being called a quack.
A quack, that's right.
And so many of us who have chiropractic parents, we lived in Yazoo City, Mississippi, and they wouldn't let my father be part of the Rotary Club or the Civitans. They would not let them join the country club. I mean, people hear that now and they're going, "Oh, you're crazy. That didn't happen." Well, folks, yes. Well, folks, yes, absolutely, it did. And when I look back on things like that and hearing your dad talk about that, things that happen to us like that, we can either respond or react to. And I look at those things as really as a gift, because if not for that, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing today and making the strides that we make today. And so, anybody that's confronted with that type of thing and feel like, oh, I'm discriminated against, use that as a fuel to make change, rather than, woe is me. I just think you can use things like that to really empower yourself, rather than to feel like you're, being held down or a victim. So what talent do you have that many people don't know about?
I'm a really good cook.
Are you?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm a really good cook.
What's your favorite dish?
Well, right now, it's the summer, so tomato pie. And I don't make it with a lot of cheese. I only make it with the fresh mozzarella and basil. But my kids love it.
What's the worst job you ever had?
When I was 15, I got a job at Baskin Robbins. And I will never forget my boss, his name was Paul. He would hide in the freezer and chain smoke throughout the majority of my shift, which was like 5 hours. No direction. It was pretty chaotic. And that was one of my first jobs. And I learned really quickly that being, working with a good team with clear communication, good direction is really important. I'm sure we all have. What was your worst job?
Smokers, but never a freezer smoker.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that funny?
That's crazy. Well, listen, I really appreciate you spending time with us today. And thanks to everyone for listening to the ChiroSphere podcast. Please subscribe and share the podcast with your friends, and let us know who you'd like to hear from in the future, and we'll do our best to get them on. If you want to learn more about Chiro Health USA and how we can help you develop a compliant, profitable discount strategy that will absolutely grow your practice and income, and as I mentioned, profitability, call us at 888-719-9990. Or visit our website at chusa.com, that's CHUSA.com, to find out why Chiro Health USA is the network that works for chiropractic in you. Thanks again, Jamie.
Thank you so much.